massive effect on the world, and especially people. Here we're going to be looking at the economic side of gaming and how it has affected everyone. We got straight to the point by asking everyone how they felt about the rise in price of games on console, and whether they like to stamp their authority on a game through such things as microtransactions.
It makes sense as games get harder to make and as the hardware gets more difficult to develop for. It makes sense, but as a whole, it would be nice if there were some just more lower budget games. It would be nice if there were just more of them just available instead of either massive AAA or free indie ones. There's no in between.
I feel like it's a little bit exploitative to a slight extent, but at the same time, with Steam and whatnot, PC gaming, it's getting a bit cheaper in some regards, but in other ways, it's getting a bit more expensive. I feel like it balances out in the end.
I guess put in what you get out. If people are enjoying what they like, those transactions, then I'm not really one to say.
It's a double-edged sword for me. In some ways, I'm a bit of a victim of it because I play quite a lot of Overwatch and get those loot boxes. However, I do believe there are darker sides of it. For example, if you're playing games like Candy Crush, where how would I put this? They kind of put it into your head that, alright, you need to pay in order to keep on playing. I believe that's the dark side of microtransactions that shouldn't be in gaming. Cosmetics and things that really don't give gamers an advantage, I believe, are fine. However, there should definitely be more warnings out there, especially for younger players who don't know really how to spend their money on these kind of microtransactions.
The world's financial state in the gaming market represents how much people spend. China, for example, who have just uplifted their 14-year ban on consoles, have created the most revenue at $32.8 billion. In comparison to this, the UK are sixth by making $3.7 billion. We are going to go and ask how gaming has affected people's budget.
I feel like it's easier these days than it used to be. It's easier to get into because there's places like this. You know, there's so much variety, and even basic things like when I was a kid, memory cards were still relatively new. If you died, that was it. You had to start from the beginning. But like, you know, like I said, there's so many more options. It just feels easier. But it's not necessarily a bad thing. It means you meet more people.
I feel like a lot's changed. A lot has changed.
Nowadays it relies too much on blood, guts and gore instead of the original oh, you're collecting fruit.
Like everything has to be violent nowadays. Why?
Like good old games like Crash Bandicoot had a little bit of violence, but like all it was is people disappeared smoke. Nowadays they disappear blood, guts and gore.
Yeah, just see bones everywhere. Take it for example, Mortal Kombat. Mortal Kombat, come on.
Yeah, but that's been a good game since back in the classics.
Yeah.
It all depends. It's on different kind of level for a play. If you're playing for fun, I don't think it affects you as much as if you want to compete with somebody or play on a high professional level.
They do, because you know, if I want a new one, then I have to kind of factor it into my income and stuff. But I never go for it if I can't afford it. You know, it's not a massive priority.
Consoles have come a long way from their humble beginnings back in arcade, and because the demand for them is so high, companies such as Nintendo, Atari and Sega have obliged and supplied. This came at a costly price for such a concept, and along the way, other companies such as Microsoft and Sony jumped on the game train and produced better systems and better graphics all around.
I support the idea of remastering games. It's kind of a shame they're sold at higher prices, but again, it's just the way the market is now. They get more expensive. It's kind of how it works. So.
It's on how much work they put into it. So, for example, the Dark Souls remaster, it doesn't. It seems pointless to me because the fact they don't change any gameplay, they don't change anything. It's just a slight change to the textures. It's not worth it. It depends on how old it was. If, for example, I was getting a remaster for a game from like 2001 or something, and it looked really good, I'd certainly go for it. If it came out like last year, I wouldn't bother.
By the 1970s, video games were prime time for commercialisation, and the first arcades had just opened. Competitive gaming was out, and such things as a joystick had just been introduced to make even the most basic of gamers able to participate. We paid a visit to the National Video Game Arcade, and kindly enough, one of the managers gave us an in-depth interview on what he thought about the change in prices of consoles, and whether he thought that they had an effect on the redundancy of arcades.
There's a rotoscope art platform game. It's a bit like Prince of Persia or Another World, if you've heard of it. And it had a different tempo to the other stuff. It was a lot more puzzle based. I prefer retro, mainly because it has the same cooperative feel that you used to get in comparison to modern consoles, which seems to be more online and just kind of sharing your game elsewhere. Well, it's all relative. The older games were more expensive because of the media that they were released on, so you had to make a cartridge, you had to do all the circuit boards and stuff like that. For absolutely everything, you had to get the right for the key. Now, it's digital, so you can just put it onto a media, or even just download it anyway, and then there's absolutely no cost on that level. So the money that was going into that is now going into larger teams and things like that. I don't think it's home consoles that's causing that. It's more esports and online gaming, and the fact that you can record. The whole point of arcades before was going and getting a high score, and because you can share your scores online now and things like that, it's definitely changed how that was. And the same with like kind of when Street Fighter came out, everyone was going to arcades to go and play that against each other. And now you can do it online, and they actually have events especially for it. But it's all it's more. I feel as though it's esports more that's killed the arcade rather than the console itself.
Gaming has come a long way throughout the ages from the arcade era, and although the change in economic pricing may have affected some people, gamers are still going strong and loving the new content that is generated every year, and they don't seem to be stopping anytime soon.